Chapter 2, Answering the Call. It helped Sophia to know that she could go back if she wanted to, but she still felt seized with indecision. "Please, I don't mean to keep you, it's just that I still don't know what to do." She paused here a moment, wondering what name to call him. She had gotten used to thinking of him as TC, but for some reason, she felt a little awkward bringing up the subject. "I just realized that you know my name, but I don't yet know yours. I have just sort of been thinking of you as TC." He smiled and winked, putting her at ease again. "Well, Miss Sophia, as a matter of fact most everybody calls me TC these days. Short for. Well, I reckon I will be telling you more about my name and myself when you board the train. I know this is not an easy choice, but I do want to say that for most folks who come here, well, it's usually because they are being given a chance to change something that sorely needs changing." Sophia's eyes widened. "Oh, but I thought my life was going pretty well." Her lack of conviction made her cringe. "That is before Daniel broke off our engagement." TC looked at her intently, his kind gray eyes full of compassion. "Oh, please Miss Sophia, I didn't mean to worry you. There's much more for you to know should you decide to board Destiny's train. I reckon I just can't say too much on this side of things, except that what awaits you will likely make it all clearer to you." Sophia's heart skipped a beat. "Destiny's train? Is that the name of the train?" TC*'s eyes were twinkling again as he answered her. "Why yes Miss Sophia, it surely is. Should you decide to board old Destiny, I believe you will find a return to what should have been. That is, what would have been, if it weren't for all the interference." Puzzled Sophia swallowed hard as she tried to understand. Interference? What interference? Her head was beginning to spin. Either TC was talking in complete riddles now or she was getting too confused to keep up. TC continued in a reassuring tone. There, Miss Sophia, I do hope you won't worry too much. I can just imagine how confusing all of this must seem right now, but don't you worry because things have a way of getting clearer, especially when we give them a little time to sink in." He stopped then and looked at his watch again before carefully placing it in his front pocket. "Well Miss Sophia, it looks like my trusty watch is telling the time again. I really must be going now, but you take good care miss." Sophia felt a lump in her throat at the thought of him really going this time, but she smiled and nodded and TC smiled back at her reassuringly before finally turning to go. "I do hope to see you on the train Miss Sophia." Sophia stood very still as she watched TC walk, with an even steady gait as though he had all the time in the world, toward the mountain. There was a new hush in the air that she had not noticed before and she could now hear a steady rush of water from a nearby stream. She took a moment to breathe in the clean mountain air and felt more invigorated right away. Sophia replayed the day's events over again in her mind and as she did so, it became clear to her why she had been hesitating. She was afraid that if she boarded the train, she would not only lose her life as she knew it now but her identity too. She needed to face it though. She needed to change. Recalling that awful moment back at the park pavilion, it became painfully clear to her that she did need to lose herself, at least whatever version of herself she had become with Daniel. That person was going through life timid and afraid and Sophia no longer wanted to live as though she were only a spectator living out someone else's life. She did not know how or why, but she was being given the chance at a new start, and she was going to take it. Feeling a rush of excitement, she now knew beyond a shadow of a doubt what she wanted to do. She was going to answer Destiny's call. Having finally made her decision, Sophia was anxious to get going and she headed off towards the mountain with determination. Her pace was slow at first but with each passing step, she seemed to be gaining momentum. She was not sure, however, just how long it took for her to arrive at the railroad tracks, especially since she had long ago lost any sense of the passing of time, but now she was here. The train station was small, consisting only of a metal enclosure with a roof overhead and an unmanned ticket booth. A row of wooden benches were lined up and ready for people to sit on as they waited for the train. Sophia glanced uneasily around her, disappointed that she saw no one else at the station. Digging into the front pocket of her blue jeans, she pulled out the train ticket. It was a bit wrinkled but still usable, and its golden color shimmered in the sunlight. Sophia held onto the ticket tightly, as though it were a lifeline, before sitting down on one of the benches closest to the empty ticket booth. It was starting to really bother her that there was no one else at the station. She no longer wanted to be alone. Impulsively she looked at her watch, startled to see that just like T.C.'s watch, it was now telling the time again. She put the watch up to her ear and sure enough she could hear the battery ticking away. The time now said 2 o'clock, although Sophia had no idea if that was the real time. She fought back a twinge of panic realizing that her concept of time, at least as she had always known it, had been changed forever. If entering the time portal caused her watch to stop, did that mean she was no longer in the time portal since her watch was working again? Sophia had never thought much about such things before, and she sighed under the weight of so many unanswered questions. Sophia was so absorbed in her thoughts about time and time portals that she nearly fell off the bench when a loud voice boomed out over the loudspeaker. "The next train is scheduled to arrive at 2:30. Have your ticket ready." Sophia gasped out loud, scrambling to regain her composure and shaken anew at the thought of boarding the train. As she looked around her once more, she could not help but wish again that there were some other passengers. Then mercifully, just as she was starting to panic, she saw a young man heading in her direction. As he got closer, Sophia noticed right away that he was dazed and out of his element. She guessed him to be in his late 20s like herself. His long sandy blonde hair was windblown, and he had a deep tan. He came up close to the bench and looked at her with big sea blue eyes, clearly as surprised to see her as she was to see him. He was tall and lanky in build and wore blue jeans similar to her own. Sophia met his gaze, her eyes widening in surprise when she saw her red jacket draped over his arm. He noticed her staring and sat down tentatively next to her, still looking a bit dazed. Sophia could tell though that he was relieved like her to find another person there. He turned toward her and put out his hand for her to shake. "Hi. My name is Spencer Perry, and I hope you won't ask me how I got here because frankly I have no idea." Sophia shook his hand before speaking. "It's nice to meet you, Spencer. I'm Sophia Miller, and I'm not sure how I got here either. When I knew everything was normal, well at least what I thought was normal, and then." Spencer piped in and finished her sentence, "So let me guess, the next minute you found yourself somewhere else, I mean in totally different surroundings, am I right?" Sophia smiled at him and laughed for the first time that day. "Yes. You were right. That is exactly what happened. I still can't believe that only just this morning I thought I was engaged and now. Well, just to add to the mystery of it all, you show up here with my jacket." Sophia had no memory of losing the jacket. She must have left it somewhere earlier in the day and forgotten about it. She was surprised to be feeling a connection so quickly with someone she had just met, but she wondered if it was because he could understand what she was going through. Whatever the reason, Sophia already felt as though she had known him for years. Spencer looked at the jacket and then back at her, his eyes widening again. "Well, you mean to tell me this is your jacket? I was walking when I found it on the ground, and it looked to be in such good shape that I didn't feel right about just leaving it there." Sophia shook her head in amazement. "Do you happen to remember where you were when you found it?" Spencer paused a moment and shifted his position on the bench before answering. Sophia noticed him now looking uncomfortable and she was puzzled. They had been getting along just fine a few seconds ago, but now she could tell something was wrong. Tensing up, she recognized the look coming over Spencer's face. It was eerily like the same glazed-over expression she had seen on Daniel's face earlier in the day. Sophia had no good explanation for why Spencer would now have the same expression, but the vague and distant look was unmistakable, and Spencer was clearly no longer comfortable being there with her. After a few moments of awkward silence, he finally answered her question, and it came as little surprise to Sophia that his tone of voice had changed completely and he was now intentionally avoiding her gaze as he spoke. "Well, I was in California surfing at Aliso Beach Park when I started to walk. I just felt so compelled to keep moving, and then the longer I walked, I could not believe my eyes because..." It was Sophia's turn to finish his sentence. "Wait, Let me guess, you saw a mountain. Spencer nodded his head slowly in agreement, still not looking at her. Then he nearly leapt off the bench, abruptly thrusting the jacket in her direction. Glancing sideways at her for only a moment, he waved briefly before working rapidly backwards away from her. I'm sorry, Sophia, but I just can't do this. I must go. I don't belong here. Sophia stood up from the bench and shouted at him. Wait. Spencer, are you sure about this? He did not answer, and within seconds he was out of her line of sight. Shaken and puzzled, Sophia looked at her watch again. It was now 2:25 p.m., only 5 minutes until the train arrived. She shuddered as a strange thought crossed her mind. What if Daniel and Spencer had both been affected by some kind of outside influence? Sophia had no idea what to make of it all. However, she did know one thing. Seeing Spencer run away like that had somehow made her forget her own fears, and she now felt more ready than ever to board the train. Her heart fluttered as the sudden shrill whistle blast of the oncoming train pierced the air, and breathless with anticipation, Sophia watched as it came into full view. The brakes let out a loud screech as the massive train slowed down until finally coming to a full stop in front of her. Sophia could barely contain her excitement at the sight of the magnificent train up close, and just as she had hoped, TC was in the driver's seat. Sophia waved excitedly to TC, who surprised her by waving for her to join him at the front of the train. With a gasp, she noticed then that the train's front cab was at least 9 feet off the ground. Craning her neck anxiously, she looked for steps or any other way to board the high cab when she was suddenly startled by the loud clanging of a metal ladder. Gasping again, she watched as the ladder slowly lowered down the side of the train and positioned directly in front of her. Anxious about climbing the ladder, Sophia found herself once again saying another prayer. Dear God, if you can hear me, please help me climb this ladder. Just then TC shouted out, all aboard, and Sophia quickly shoved the train ticket into the front pocket of her anorak jacket. She tied the jacket securely around her waist and took a deep breath before stepping tentatively up onto the first rung of the ladder. She quickly glanced over her shoulder at the train station, and a nervous shiver passed through her at the thought of leaving behind the only life she had ever known. But she was determined to keep going, and she knew in her heart that this was the right path for her. Grabbing onto the sides of the ladder firmly, Sophia started to climb, making sure not to look at the ground and keeping her gaze on each step ahead of her. She continued climbing at a slow but steady pace until with a sigh of relief she finally reached the top rung of the ladder. The moment she stepped onto the train, she felt exuberant, as though she had just passed a difficult test or reached a personal milestone. TC greeted her right away, smiling broadly. Welcome aboard, miss. Excited to be on the train, Sophia was shocked when her knees buckled unexpectedly, and she lost her balance. She would have fallen for sure if TC had not lunged forward just in time and caught her. Whoa there, Miss Sophia. I do reckon you have had more than your fair share of excitement for one day. Sophia managed a shaky smile. Thank you, TC, I think you are right. I must not have realized how dizzy I was, but I am starting to feel better now. TC held onto her arm protectively and helped her further on into the cab. I sure am sorry about that climb, Miss Sophia. I wonder if the climbing made you dizzy. Let me know if you need to sit down. Sophia shook her head emphatically. Oh no, please, not yet, TC. It is wonderful to be here, and I want to look around a little first. TC hesitated a moment before finally waving an arm around the cab's roomy interior. What do you think of Old Destiny so far, miss? Sophia stared wide-eyed at all the technical equipment around them, and even though she could not identify most of it, she did recognize a two-way radio, an odd steering wheel that she guessed to be the train's throttle, and a quaint antique hand-crank telephone that she found particularly intriguing. The train also had an impressive control panel full of many levers and knobs, and on either side were 2 seats upholstered in a dark red floral fabric. Sophia was immediately captivated by the train's charm and elegance. Old Destiny is just beautiful, TC, so historic and yet somehow brand new at the same time. Oh wait, I've got it. Old Destiny is timeless. Sophia paused and then pointed to the old-fashioned telephone. Is it by any chance a real working phone? TC chuckled. Yes, Miss Sophia. That is indeed a real telephone. Sophia blinked in surprise. She had not expected the phone to work. Does that mean I could call my parents? TC nodded. Of course, miss. You just say the word. Sophia's heart skipped a beat at the thought. Thank you, TC, I will let you know. She would have loved to call her parents right away, but she hesitated. How was she going to explain what had happened to her when she herself did not yet understand it? Sighing heavily, she decided to wait and call them once she knew more about why she was here and where Old Destiny was going. As she thought about the train's destination, she remembered the train ticket and promptly retrieved it from her jacket. Oh, TC, I am sorry. The ticket is so wrinkled. TC seemed unconcerned. Oh, don't you worry, miss. The ticket looks just fine to me. Smiling reassuringly, he pointed to the 2 seats in front of the train's control panel. What do you say we sit for a spell, miss? I do need to tend to a few things before we get Old Destiny here moving again. Sophia nodded with relief. She had no idea how far she had actually walked that day, but she was now acutely aware that her feet were aching, and she was more than ready to sit down. She made her way to the passenger seat and sank back into it gratefully, happy to discover that the seat was as comfortable as it looked. TC waited until she was seated before sitting down in the driver's seat. Sophia watched curiously as he opened one of the compartments on the control panel and brought out an insulated lunchbox. He set the lunchbox down on the small built-in table between their seats before speaking. I got to thinking, miss. You surely must have worked up an appetite by now, and we don't want you getting any more dizzy spells either. Sophia smiled gratefully and laughed out loud in agreement. Oh yes, TC, as a matter of fact I have, thank you. TC looked pleased. Would you like to do the honors, miss? Sophia nodded an emphatic yes and began emptying out the lunchbox until the table was filled with food. TC had packed tuna sandwiches, oranges, an assortment of crackers and sharp cheeses, and there was even lemon cake and a canteen of water for her. Sophia did not know if it was all the excitement of the day or because she was so hungry, but she was sure that food had never tasted this good before. TC must have been hungry too, because neither of them spoke much but instead ate in a companionable silence. Just as Sophia was finishing the last of her sandwich, she looked out the window at the bench where she and Spencer had sat together and wondered what had happened to him. She sincerely hoped that he was happy with his choice. As she looked at the unmanned ticket booth and loudspeaker, she was also struck by the realization that the train station no longer intimidated her, and even though she did not yet know what awaited her, she understood now what it felt like to have a true sense of purpose. She would have continued happily gazing out the window if the image of Spencer fleeing the train station had not suddenly come back to her vividly, and she winced remembering the expression on his face. Apparently, Spencer fleeing the train station had bothered her more than she realized. She felt a fleeting chill and turned quickly away from the window, then, relieved to focus instead on TC, who caught her eye right away and pointed to the digital clock on the control panel. Sophia noted the time and gasped out loud. According to the clock on the train, it was only 3:15. Sophia checked her wristwatch and shook her head in disbelief. Her watch also said 2:45. She was certain that more than 15 minutes had passed. How is this possible, TC? How could only 15 minutes have passed since I first boarded the train? TC's single quote's expression became uncharacteristically sober, and he leaned forward to answer her. Well, Miss Sophia, that would be because we are still in the time portal. You see, it's all a bit complicated, miss. Sophia's pulse quickened and she felt a sudden urgency to know more. Oh, please do go on, TC, even if I can't understand it all just yet. I need to know. TC eased back into his seat. I was hoping you would feel that way, miss. The thing is, this entire region surrounding the train station is a time portal or gate, which means that time here tends to stop and start. Sophia tried unsuccessfully to picture time starting and stopping, and thought she had better start with the basics. What exactly is a time portal, TC? TC leaned forward again. Well, miss, I suppose the simplest answer would be to say that time portals connect different locations in space and time. Sophia bit her lip nervously. She was not at all sure she was ready to hear the answer to her next question. Is that what Old Destiny does then? What I mean is, will we be traveling to a different time? TC single quote S brow furrowed over with concern. You know, miss, this is a lot to take in all at once, and to be honest, I'm not sure how much I ought to be telling you just yet, but I am what is called a time conductor, and my job is to watch over timelines. And when a timeline has been tampered with, well, miss, that is when they send me in to pick up passengers at time portals like this one. Sophia nearly jumped out of her seat. Oh, but wait, TC, if you are here, then that must mean something has gone wrong with my timeline. Suddenly her throat was very dry. Why me, TC? Why was I the one brought here to this time portal? TC spoke slowly as if he were choosing his words carefully. Well, miss, I do get sent to time portals to pick up passengers for time travel, or for folks who might be needing to travel to different timelines, and only those who say yes to destiny like you did can usually board. But I reckon before I can better answer your question, I need to ask you one first. Sophia's head was whirling with thoughts of time travel, and what did he say? Travel to different timelines. She took a much-needed drink from her canteen and tried to stay calm. What is the question, TC? TC did not answer at first, but instead opened another compartment on the control panel and brought out a strange mechanical device. Sophia wondered if it might be some kind of small tuning fork or antenna, but she really had no idea what it was. TC placed the object carefully on the table between them. I want to say, miss, that I sure do appreciate how concerned you were about the condition of the train ticket, and now I wonder if you might be willing to look after something even more valuable than that gold ticket. Sophia's eyes seemed to be glued to the object. Yes, of course, TC, but what is it? Well, miss, I will try to explain as simply as I can. This device is designed to pinpoint the location of a rift. A rift made by the introduction of destructive energy into the space-time fabric of your timeline. The intent, miss, was to create an alternate timeline, and unfortunately it succeeded. I know this must be hard to take in and most likely not too easy to hear, but the bottom line is that your original timeline was damaged and an alternate timeline, the timeline you have been living in, was created. Sophia sat bolt upright in her seat as she remembered that moment back at the train station when she had wondered if Daniel and Spencer had both been affected by some outside influence or interference. Her heart beat wildly as she tried to take it all in, and she could not deny that there was still a part of her that did not want to believe that such things as time portals and timelines existed, but the part of her that did believe was more convinced now than ever. So TC, let me make sure I understand this. You were saying that someone deliberately tampered with my timeline in order to create an alternate timeline? TC nodded soberly. Yes, miss. Sophia struggled to digest the awful truth. But why, TC, why would anyone do such a thing? She thought back to all the times in her life when she had felt out of place, and she had always blamed herself. She shook her head, not wanting it to be true, because if it was true, then not only her life, but the lives of those she loved and cared about had been changed as well. It was too much. Choking back a sob, she could not stop the tears from flowing, and through her haze of grief TC appeared next to her with a stricken expression, and without a word handed her another lavender-scented handkerchief. She pressed it to her cheeks, and breathed in its soothing scent until she was once again somehow miraculously comforted. By the time TC had returned to his seat, she was already calmer and more clear-headed, and she did not want TC to think he had made a mistake by telling her about her timeline so soon. Please, TC, I hope you don't regret telling me. I have made my choice, and I have no intention of turning back, if that is worrying you. In fact, I am more determined now than ever to know what I can do to help. Sophia saw the hint of a twinkle returning to TC's eyes and was relieved. Well, Miss Sophia, this device has a power that can only be used by someone from the original timeline, but it can do more than just locate the problem. It is a kind of key that can help to repair the timeline as well. Sophia was up again on the edge of her seat. So that is why I was brought here. I belong to the original timeline, and I can use this device or key. Does it have a name? TC nodded. Yes, miss, it has a technical name, but it might be easiest to just call it a rift locator, and if things go as I hope, this key along with two others just like it, will restore your timeline.